this video we're going to do a disassembly of the VRBP 100 from Rock Island Armory. Now this isn't going to be your generic, disassembly and reassembly video. I'm also going to touch on cleaning, and it's just going to be a touch. It's going to be a touch on cleaning and lubrication points and kind of describing how the system works, just kind of in a simple manner. So anyways, basically all you're really going to need for this, if you're following along with your own shotgun or just kind of curious how it works, you get this tool with the shotgun and it has basically everything you're going to need. This works for the chokes that you'd need to put on. This works for basically the front end cap that we'll cover in a little bit, and there's obviously a use for the rest of this, and as I mess with it more, I guess I'll figure it out and you'll see it in another video. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you want to make sure that this thing is unloaded. So obviously you pull back the charging handle and you see in there, it is unloaded. Beautifully so. So the next step is to actually lock the bolt back. This has AR-15 controls for the most part as far as like a bolt release. So you hold that down, pull the charging handle back, let it go forward, and it locks the bolt back smartly. So then you have this control right here. Now this is something that you can't really use unless it's in the right position. Basically this is the cartridge ramp, as they call it, or the feed ramp. So this thing right here that you see, as you can see, I'm moving this out of the position with my thumb. I'm bending it downwards. It sets right here. This is the normal position, so you can feed ammo, and this is kicking it out and putting it at a 90-degree angle downward. As you can see from here, that is the feed ramp, and there you go. So you're knocking the feed ramp out of position because you're going to need that for disassembly. So with that said, now we're going to go to the front of the firearm, and you're going to have your end cap here. This is where your tool comes in. You have your tool, the front part here, it hooks into one of these notches, and you just hook in here, and we're going to twist it left. So there we go, and then you just get it started, and pretty easy to take off after that. So next thing is you have this piece that's going to come out. So you're going to want to hold this with your finger, because you're going to basically be pushing on the charging handle forward, because it holds the charging handle and the grip actually. So you got this one piece that basically holds the charging handle in, which is non-reciprocating, has its own spring, but you also have the grip. It's held on in two areas. As you can see, it locks in the front here and also in the back. So you have the front and the back locking areas, and they're right here and right here. So that's all it does. Basically from here it'll just wiggle off, and then it's just held on by that one little plate. So pretty simple. I don't know of any aftermarket grips like with little rails or anything like that, anything cute like that. So anyways, from here this whole thing is going to come off, this whole front area with the rail. So what you want to do is make sure the polymer is not really getting in the way. So I go right here and I pull upwards, and then should be out of the way, and there you go. Now we have our gas system exposed, and keep in mind now the bolt is actually still locked to the rear here, so it is compressed, but as you can see here you have an idea of how the gas system works. So this is actually supposed to be the color of this. This should look like this, but this is basically where the gas goes in, up in here, and it shoots up into this area and it pushes this part back. This area right here is what the charging handle rests on. So basically the charging handle sits like this and it pushes back on it, and that's basically the whole function of the charging handle, is to move this piece back. So anyways, that's why this thing is so dirty. So to release it, you can either take two fingers and push it back a little bit. It doesn't take too much tension on the recoil spring, or you can just release it with the bolt release. Personally, I'm just going to take my two fingers, and there we go. It's done. So you have a recoil spring. This thing is pretty tight when you first start out. So once you start firing a good amount of ammo through it, it will weaken, I guess you could say. It'll, break in. And so there's I would recommend lubricating this area that's all dirty right here, because this is a friction point for this system right here, this piece going back and forth, and also the outside pieces here. You can see it goes in here, and it's going to be rubbing up against the inside here. So lubricating where the inside of this portion is rubbing, obviously it's rubbing up against this area right here. As you can see, it's not exactly perfect. So the recoil spring and the actual little mechanism here is getting some friction. So anyways, in order to get the barrel off, we're going to go ahead and take this little end cap here, and pretty much just finger tight. There's really not much of an issue with it. And get to the second part of the threads and have to unscrew it again. And so once this is over, all you really have to do is then pull on the barrel, and there we go. The whole system wants to come apart, right? So that's the good part. So then obviously the recoil spring comes off this tube, no big deal. So before we move on to more of this system and the bolt, I want to go and talk about the chokes. When you first get this shotgun, it's going to have the what I believe is the modified choke in there. That's not good for firing slugs. So basically what I did is I went in and I made sure that I had a full open choke. So this is where this tool comes in handy again. So apparently this thing takes like Beretta or Benelli chokes or whatever, and it actually does loosen up when you shoot it a good amount. This thing does loosen up a bit, so yeah, just be aware of that. But make sure that you're using the appropriate choke for what you're intending to break it in with. So if you're going to be wanting to shoot slugs out of the box, you're going to want to replace the choke with the most open choke, which would be the one with all the notches in it right here. So that's the safest one that you can shoot. Other than that, you have a 20-inch barrel here, and yep, the white man flashlight isn't exactly doing it justice, but woohoo, this is one dirty barrel. This is the piston that I was talking about, the little gas piston. Here it says light for light loads, your 2 3/4 inch shells. So I was shooting defense loads and other things, and it really wasn't that bad. You can see it's getting a little white nasty up here. So this is going to have to get a little bit of a soaking, and yeah, going to need a little bit of love and affection and cleaning. So you also have the heavy that you're provided with as well, and this is for like your 3-inch shells or your really powerful ones. So anyways, now talking about the bolt and this little carrier system. As I said, you'll want to lubricate the inside portion here, because this is going to be rubbing up against this area. And then up here, you can see how this system works. You basically have this little piece right here that's spring loaded, little metal piece. Here's the front, and here's the top. It kind of looks like an 870, right? The locking mechanism for an 870. So you put it down at an angle like this. That way you can hook this little piece on to the front inside portion, and then you pull back, and there you go. There's your buffer bolt system, patented by the RIA Arms in Turkey. So you can see on the bolt here that there is some friction. I recommend basically lubricating anything that has friction on your firearm. After firing it for a little bit, you will start seeing your own friction points, like this one. Starting to get some interesting, unique friction up top here. So that's kind of interesting. So I'll have to go ahead and lubricate accordingly. And of course here, every firearm's going to have its own unique pattern. So of course there's a little bit of wear in here, so I could oil that up or grease it, whatever. And yeah, the outside portions here I would lubricate personally, because these are seeing a little bit of wear. I'm actually seeing the wear right in here. And leave on the other side, yep, there's a bit of wear right there. So yeah, go ahead and make sure that I lubricate appropriately, and we'll all be good to go with this buffer bolt system, which is supposed to be reducing damage on the inside of the weapon. For I don't know how true that is. That's just what RIA Arms says on their website. So other than that, you've got a little transfer bar here, which is, to the trigger mechanism, which is back here, like the hammer and everything. All the business guts are back here. So I have not disassembled this to kind of get back there at all, but eventually I intend to do so. But for the moment, this is about as far as I'm breaking it down, and this is just a basic disassembly. So here you have some springs that you can lubricate. When I measured this, I came in at about 10 pounds on my Lyman gauge for trigger pull. So it's really not as dramatic as some people were saying. Some were saying it was like 20 pounds or something ridiculous like that. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and clean this off, wipe this down. And yeah, that's basically what it's supposed to look like. Of course, the friction has been taken, it's had a bit of friction to it, so yeah, it's starting to show a little bit of wear from the metal on metal. And of course, around here where the gas is really slammed up against the metal, it's going to be a little caked on there, obviously, so I can just put some CLP on there and let it soak for a little bit while the rest of this is cleaning. Next thing is the actual barrel here in the chamber area. This area is obviously going to be incredibly dirty because I was actually getting spit at by the gases. I was getting some gas in the eye, even with eye protection. So yeah, this thing is going to be pretty nasty under here, but it's not really a functional nasty. It's not going to impede function, I don't think. It's just that this area is going to be dirty if you touch it, or it's going to get your hand dirty. But this is basically what it looks like. It's almost like it was chromed or is just left unfinished. So yeah, it looks pretty good. So just wipe that down and it's pretty much good to go. And then the actual barrel itself is going to get a rod through it, and I'll just do what cleaning barrels is with a punch rod and everything. And on the inside of this, I am going to just take a little bit of CLP. You can see the two holes in there where the gas shoots in to the keys. Yeah, you want to go ahead and clean that area where the gas is hitting. So I'm going to put a little bit of CLP in here and just use my finger to kick it around. And we'll let that sit. And the biggest thing is letting the CLP sit and do its job. And should be all good to go. That's the area that the metal is getting all nasty from on here. So I'll just let that sit for a little bit, and I might as well put some CLP in here to break up this. There's some crap in the corner there, so also take up whatever I can. And also this stuff will put a nice little finish on the metal to where everything will have a hard time sticking. All the fouling and all the firing residue will have a hard time sticking the more you treat it with it. So that's always good. So now let that sit and move on to the bolt. Just going to give this thing a nice detailed wipe down. Now it's wiped down, I'm just going to go ahead and lubricate it. You can see the odd wear up here in this locking area and up here. And I'm going to be pretty generous with it. This lubricant can actually burn off pretty easily, so I'll just be a little generous with the lubrication. No big deal. And this pivot area, why not? Then I know firing pin area here, you can see that from the track marks or whatever, and of course there's a hair. Then this area is polished. So yeah, we'll put all this stuff in here, and obviously on the inside, because it's brushing back and forth on the inside, why not just lubricate this thing up? Why not? And I'll just put it on the Palmer here. And now this thing. Okay, so I got this thing nice and wiped down. This is basically just one nicely polished piece of metal, and of course you can see where this thing was like welded together. This bar and this piece, it's like it was welded together, and so it just looks like crap, really, but I'm sure it'll hold up pretty well. So anyways, basically I'm just going to lubricate the inside here. Just do a nice little ring around there, let it hang loose, and then I'm going to put it right in here, and right on the other side here. And then I'll hold it right here and just lubricate each side where it rides, even though I did it on the bolt itself. Who cares? And then the front and back, and get a little bit down in there for this little spring system here. And yeah, why not this area too? Who cares? Whatever. And then you can see that there's a bit of friction in this area, and I know the hammer rides in there. So that should do it for that. And now I'll just go ahead and put this bolt on there. Oh yeah, nice and smooth now. There we go. So might as well put some lubrication where the bolt, the little locking lug goes up and down. Make it nice and smooth going in and out of battery. Why not? So that's pretty much it for that. Now just wipe off some things like the piston. Okay, so I gave this thing a good wipe down, and I also put some CLP on here, and I'm just going to go ahead and let it rest. It's not going to get that much of a rest because I only have a few more things to do, and then I'm just going to brush out the barrel and call it good. Really the best thing for the barrel is just to get a bore snake, you know. So this is the choke. It got pretty nasty. Making it nice and pretty now, aren't we? Okay, so yeah, there we go. There's the cylinder choke. Not bad. The inside, not that great, but you know, whatever. I'll just put this back on the inside, and after I go ahead and swab this out a little bit. Okay, so the charging handle and the recoil spring. So as you can see, it does get a little bit of wear on it from the recoil spring grinding up against it. So yeah, if you lubricate that a little bit, that'll be nice of you. And last but not least, we got the basically what they call the mainspring, but I call it the recoil spring because if this thing didn't have any power to it, yeah, it wouldn't be able to stop the thing from coming back as harshly. So yeah, mainspring, recoil spring, yeah, who cares? Big spring. There you go. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and, you know, wipe off the excess from the piston, and then just go ahead and re-lubricate. I guess wipe off whatever will come off of this piston. Alright, so some stuff is out of there. It's not perfect, and it's not going to be really beautiful by any means. So just, yeah, go ahead and put it in there, and yeah, should be fun. Should be fun to see how this goes. So the next step is basically first we get our recoil spring on, and before we put the recoil spring on, wipe off any bit that's going to come off here. Okay, so put the recoil spring on and lubricate it. So I like to lubricate this thing pretty well. Then put this piece on. Then once this is on, go ahead and put our barrel on from gas system. There we go. So once this is on, basically you stand this up, and then we get this piece right here, and we start threading it on. Make sure this side is down towards this piece, not this smooth side. Start twisting it on, then hold it down and make sure it's actually locked in quite nicely, and it'll just stop clicking and moving when you are done. So now that that's done with, basically I don't think you have to lock this thing back, but what you can do is go ahead and pull this back a little bit and push this back flat. So basically giving yourself the feed ramp back. There we go. Now it's good. Now we take our little cover here, we put it back. This one can be kind of tricky because the rail system and this kind of connect, have to connect to each other almost perfectly. So I like to put this on fire in order to get this to slip on properly. So then I grab around here on both sides and I spread them apart. That way they don't interfere. And this time it went together, but you can see here that it goes in, and you got this little knob right here that interlocks down in there. Then you got little knobs down here on each side that lock in. So got to make sure they're just right sometimes, and it likes to be its own pain in the butt. So then of course you put your grip on, and then once that grip is on, you put your nice freshly lubricated charging handle back in right here. And let me go ahead and adjust this. And then you put your cover on. This is going to be kind of tricky because this thing is fitted very well. This thing is not going to be jiggling. So you got to put this on just right, straight on in there. And that way you can just push down and poop, it just pops right in. But yeah, maybe try this little nub over the charging handle first. There we go. And it snapped right in. And then you obviously got your cover piece here. Just go ahead and screw it in. Lubricate the threads if you want to kind of make it easier to disassemble next time, or maybe not. Then you use your tool, righty-tighty, as many times as it will allow, I suppose. So, there we go. Okay, so that pretty much does it for the VRBP 100 disassembly, and so everything is clean now. Everything is lubricated. Well, it's mostly clean, and it's lubricated and ready to go out to the range again. So with all that said, I hope you guys leave a comment below and let me know what your experiences are if you have this shotgun, or what you think about the system. I think it's pretty simple. It's a pretty cool shotgun. So anyways, thanks a lot for watching. You guys have a good one.